there Star Wars collectors, welcome to another Bossk's Bounty video and welcome to episode 26 of Ask Bossk's Bounty. Of course, this is the weekly series where you guys get to ask me questions in the comment section below and I do my very best to answer them each week. Do apologise about last week's video not being a proper Q&A video. As you probably saw, my room was in a complete mess and basically that is where I record all of these videos. But I've managed to sort most of it out and the room tour video will be up very soon. Within the next 2 or 3 weeks anyway, I'll be recording that video. Alright then, so we've got plenty of questions to get through today. It's going to be a decent episode this week. Loads of decent questions. But before I do that, I just wanted to give you some information about a website in Australia called Aussie Sci-Fi Collectibles. He actually contacted me today, Jeff over there. Decent website, loads and loads of decent stock at good prices, and he does international shipping as well. So if you place an order on his website using the code Star Wars Day between the 4th and the 25th of May, then you will be put into a draw to potentially get either 100%, 75%, 50% or 25% off of your order refunded, which is pretty cool. Also, if you do make a purchase on the 25th of May, which is obviously the anniversary of when Star Wars hit theatres in 1977, and you buy a Black Series figure of Luke, Rey or Kylo Ren, you will then be put into a draw to win any and all Black Series figures that are released in Australia, so basically no exclusives, for the next 6 months. So pretty much the whole year you will get every single Black Series figure released. I will leave the link to his website in the description below and also the code of Star Wars Day that you'll need to use. Now with all that being said, drop a like down below if you happen to enjoy this video and of course subscribe if you are new to the channel. And let's get on to the first question. Chick Nugget Mutant, that's a great name by the way, says what figures would you like to see in a vintage style 3-pack? Okay, so I've done a little bit of thought about this and there's three things that I could really come up with that I would love to see in a vintage collection 3-pack. Now the first thing is like a Cantina style 3-pack where we get maybe a Hammerhead and a new updated Snaggletooth and maybe one other figure, maybe one of the band members. Something like that would be really cool. Another thing that I'd go for is perhaps a Jabba's Palace 3-pack, so we could maybe have a re-release of Woof, which is a figure that everybody seems to want. He's quite rare these days, quite expensive on the secondary market. This one was actually sent to me by Jack Wilson to my PO box, which is very kind of him indeed, because I did not have him loose. But you could put him potentially with maybe the Rancor Keeper, which does need re-releasing from the Legacy collection in the Vintage collection, and also perhaps the Jiran figure as well. So those two figures and Woof perhaps would look pretty cool in a 3-pack. And then that would also give them license to release the other two, Jiran and the Rancor Keeper, on single cards. Apart from that, maybe potentially a 501st 3-pack with updated figures. So you could have the updated Captain Rex, which is on the radar, maybe a Commander Apo and a general normal 501st. I'd love to see that, a 501st 3-pack. That is awesome. David Meyer says, hi, thumbs up from France, love your channel. Thank you very much, David. Wouldn't miss any of your posts each week. Thank you. So here is my question. How do you rate the vintage original trilogy collection figures as compared to the vintage collection, and how many of the OTC figures do you have? So I do like them. There are still some great figures in that line. I do have them all. The Han Solo is still particularly good. This Boba Fett isn't too bad either. He is from the vintage original trilogy collection, but there is a lot in that line that do need updating quite badly. So springing to mind is the Lando Calrissian and the Princess Leia Organa. Those two in particular need an update in the vintage collection and need to be in that full line with a number on the back and everything. 1980s and Star Wars Guy says, how many Boba Fett figures do you own, and is there one that you wanted? What would it be? His would be the Return of the Jedi Bandai Fett. So these are pretty much most of my Boba Fetts that I do have, apart from Jodo Cast there. I've just put him in there. I did open him the other day on a video. You might want to check that out after this video. But I've put him there because basically he's like an imitation of Boba Fett, isn't he? He wants to look like him. But I do have the Black Series Boba Fett there. I also have him carded on the Kenner version, that exclusive that came out. Obviously, I've got the VOTC version. This one here, he came with the Slave 1. This is the Vintage Collection version. This is a really good version of Boba Fett. He actually came in a 2-pack with Han Solo. He's a Force Link figure, but he's a great looking Boba Fett. That one, 5 POA of course. And my favourite is the original vintage Boba Fett from back in the day. This is a pretty good example as well. Decent paint and everything on him, and nice stiff limbs. KSI is the greatest of all time says, do you think they will make a fig of the New Republic droid in the 6th episode of The Mandalorian? So the 6th episode of The Mandalorian, that's the one on the prison ship, right? Okay, so those droids that are bowling about, they are great looking droids in my opinion, and I would love one of those in the vintage collection. I think possibly there are other characters that we will probably see way before they get to doing something like that, but I do love the design, and of course I'd love to see it on a vintage style card. Carl Jones says, hi Bossk Bounty, will you get the re-released Darth Maul on the vintage collection this year? Yes, 100%, of course I will. I'll be getting all of the figures that come out in the vintage collection. Not so much for myself as well, but of course I like to review them on the channel. But I do need a Darth Maul loose. I have the original one carded from 2011 or whenever it was, but I do need that figure loose. So I'm actually quite happy that they're re-releasing it. So for £13.99, I can get myself a loose Darth Maul rather than having to pay £30–40 for a carded one and have to open him. Jared Cantor says, love the show. Each time an episode drops, it brings a smile to my face and makes my day, especially during these tough times. Thank you very much, Jared. I do appreciate that. It's really nice to hear. As I've mentioned before, making these videos actually helps me in these tough times as well. So I'm glad you're enjoying the videos. Question for next Ask Bossk Bounty is, if for whatever reason, space-time budget constraints, you had to focus your collection, what would you choose? And I'm not allowed to say a focus collection of Bosks. To be honest, it wouldn't be a focus collection of Bosks anyway. I do have quite a few different Bosks here and there in one of my cabinets, which brings me actually onto this one here, which I did want to show you. So this is done by a guy on Instagram called Delicious Again Peter, extremely talented person. And this figure here is pretty much the vintage Bossk, as you can see there, but coloured. And the card back is a mix match of Masters of the Universe and Star Wars. And I just thought it was brilliant. I've got mine signed down there, and it's number 3 of 20. So there's only actually 20 of there. Great artwork on the back there of Bossk. And I just thought this has got to be for my collection. So that's Delicious Again Peter. He is on Instagram if you wanted to check him out. I recommend that you do. But if I was going to focus my collection, it would have to be original trilogy, I would say. Maybe Cantina. But I would say if I only had a very limited amount of money, then I'd probably just want to get a loose run of the original vintage figures, basically. And that would be my collection. James Wilson says, hey Bossk, I greatly appreciate your videos and all the research you put into them. Thank you very much. My question, do you think that Hasbro will ever have a dedicated 3.75 inch figure line for the Mandalorian series itself? At the moment, I doubt it. Judging by the live stream that they did the other day on Hasbro Pulse, it seems to me that basically Star Wars figures, in terms of actual proper figures, whether they're 6 inch or 3.75, they admit are pretty much just for the collectors. You've got all your little bobbleheads and all your other little things that Hasbro put out for Star Wars, maybe even those 5 inch figures, but I don't think they'll last too long either. And they blatantly said that they are not for us, the collectors. So I kind of think that at the moment they've given up on 5 POA, 3.75. I can't see them bringing anything out like that. I think they're just concentrating on the 6 inch line and the vintage collection. But that doesn't mean to say that we can't have more Mandalorian figures in the vintage collection. And that is definitely something that I think they should do. And I think it's got to be on their radar, purely because it's such a popular show and everyone would want those figures. Russian Spy says, hey Bossk, great video. Do you think we would get some more vintage collection figures from the Clone Wars, like Captain Rex or Fives? So the good news is, Russian Spy, is that Fives is coming in the wave later on this year. He's going to be in the same wave as the Luke Jedi Knight. There is also a very strong rumour that we will be getting an updated, or maybe not an updated, but we will be getting a Captain Rex in the vintage collection. Let's just hope it's not this one with the tiny little head. Let's hope it's an updated figure. Jeffrey Ngongo says, hey Bossk, I have an opinion question for you. What is your stance on the definitive A New Hope style Stormtrooper debate? The rest of the question is quite long. Basically, I know what he's talking about. The Rogue One Stormtrooper in the Vintage Collection, which a lot of people are saying is the definitive Stormtrooper, is the definitive Stormtrooper in terms of the Rogue One Stormtrooper, or just a Stormtrooper in general. It's a very, very good Stormtrooper. But if you're talking about the New Hope Stormtrooper, there are subtle differences to the armour and the helmet itself. And a lot of people have picked up on that, including the designer at Hasbro themselves. They did mention about potentially bringing out a New Hope one, and we do need him on that Star Wars card. So I do hope that we do get two versions. Obviously, they could use some of the parts, but generally there are subtle differences between the two. And although I would say the Rogue One at the moment is the definitive Stormtrooper, it is only definitive for Rogue One because there are differences. Golden Crisp says, hey Boss, great video as always. Thank you, Golden Crisp. Was wondering if you have any other characters that you tend to focus on, enjoy collecting besides Bossk. Yes, I do. I'm very keen on clone troopers. I have, just looking behind me now, I don't know, I have maybe 20 or 30 different clones. Maybe not different ones, I've got a few that are the same, but roughly about 20 or 30 clones. There's 3 of them here. I love a clone trooper, and it's a kind of a focus of mine, I guess. I do love the clones. Sith Law says, wow, that collector book for the Spanish Star Wars figures is incredible. So he's talking about the book that I showed a couple of weeks ago, I think it is, which is the PPP or POC Spanish Star Wars, Vintage Star Wars figures book, which is a great book. What do you think is the most have collector book? So I think that generally, the general consensus for that is the Kellerman book. I think it goes for like over £200 on eBay. Or, you know, if you ever see one come up, the Kellerman book, great book, very expensive to own these days. Onslaught64 says, do you think we will get a reissue of the Jabba sail barge for sale? And if so, how much do you think it will cost? And do you know how I can get a decent price sail barge? By the way, have a good day. So when these things first came out, a lot of people bought them to stick them on eBay, and they were going for around £1,200, I'd say, or $1,500 maybe, you know, maybe 2 or 3 times the price that they were actually sold for on Hasbro Pulse. And then I noticed that there was a bit of a lull. The prices were actually coming down. I think I saw one actually sell for like £1,000, which is not too bad, I'd say. But now I've seen them gain even more popularity, and they're going up in price again. And I'm glad I own one, because I wouldn't want to pay the prices that they're going for now. Do I think that they'll reissue it? I don't think they will. I think it was a one-off Haslab project. Again, judging by the live stream that they did the other day, the sail barge was brought up in being one of their favourite projects that they've ever had to work on. And the way they were talking, it was just like a mammoth thing to get it done. And I just don't think that they will do it again or release it again. I think you've got your 10,000 or so that were made, and if you're lucky enough to own one, I think that's it. I mean, I could be completely wrong, and they might do it in 5 years' time and make another 10,000. But at the moment, I think that's it. The 10,000 we've got is all. Alright then guys, that is it for this week. Don't forget to drop a like down below if you have enjoyed this video, and subscribe if you're new. And also, please remember to leave your questions in the comment section below for next week's episode. Thank you very much for watching as per usual, and we shall see you on the next one.